For those of you who have any money left over after you've bought all your textbooks, the book that Ray showed you, the book C.S. Lewis and the Gender Debates, Sword Between the Sexes, is available in the bookstore, and it is available at a discount. So that will be there after it's there now and after the talk as well. All right, so I've called this A Preference for People, C.S. Lewis. Can everybody hear me? Am I all right here? Yeah, all right. C.S. Lewis's Long Journey to Gender Equality. This is Lewis as a young man. I have this, and I don't think it works. That's not bright enough. Okay. On your left is Lewis as a young man, just as he's going up to Oxford. On your right is Lewis and the wife that he married in late life, as they are both approaching their own deaths. I want to first of all talk about my background for writing this book. I read C.S. Lewis as a university student when I was not a very active Christian. I was very impressed with Lewis's intellect. I was very impressed with the fact that it was clear from reading Lewis that you could become a Christian or be a Christian and not put your mind in cold storage. And I had very little evidence of that in the 1950s in the Canadian and North American setting I was raised in. I did not much like what he had to say about gender in the books that I read, but then I only read the books that the earlier Lewis wrote. I read Mere Christianity, I read The Four Loves, I read Surprised by Joy, his autobiography. In fact, one of his last books, A Grief Observed, in which he talks about his grief over his wife's death, was not even available in Canada at that time. But at any rate, in spite of all this, I was asked in 2004 to do the C.S. Lewis lecture at the University of Tennessee. It's an endowed lecture that's given annually at the University of Tennessee, and I was silly enough to say yes, and the rest is history. There are some sort of family connections. Lewis was raised as a Belfast Protestant in Northern Ireland, and my own family were Scots-Irish people who went from Scotland to Ireland, stayed in Ireland, Northern Ireland for a few generations, came to Canada in 1833. So there's the Belfast Scots-Irish connection, and indeed this is myself and my sister-in-law when we visited with our respective spouses Belfast in 2005, and we're standing in front of Queen's University Belfast. My husband mentioned that I graduated from Queen's University in Kingston, so did my sister-in-law, so we're pointing at the Queen's University sign, and I call this photo Two Queens from Queens Visit Queens. All right? The photo is interesting for another reason, because Lewis's mother, Flora Lewis, graduated in 1878 from Queen's Belfast with a double major in mathematics and logic. More about that later. I've already said that, like Lewis, I was a youthful apostate from Christianity. I'd been raised in the United Church of Canada, but by the time I got to university and some friends told me to read C.S. Lewis, I was not an active Christian. Lewis had a similar history, had lost what Christian connections he had by the time he went to Oxford. But he didn't just write about gender, he didn't just write about Christian apologetics. He has a lot to say in his writings about, in a sort of a popular way, about philosophy of science and social science. And so I had kept up with Lewis and what he'd said about those things over the years. And of course he has a lot to say about gender in his writings. And so for all of those reasons, I did the 2004 Lewis lecture at Tennessee, and that gradually evolved into the book that you were shown just a few minutes ago.